Guys, welcome to the new episode of the First Responder Playbook. I'm joined today by Damian Bloss, who is a mental health advocate and addiction recovery person. He has went through addiction struggles and is on the road to recovery. And Damian, I'm glad to have you today, man. Thanks for joining me.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Brent. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Damian, tell me. Let's talk about your story. Tell me how we got here.
Yeah. Growing up, it was pretty normal. My whole thing growing up was playing baseball. That was my dream. I wanted to do that forever, right?
As I got the
And
Mets game playing in the background.
right.
Big baseball fan.
Nice, nice. O's fan over here.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, but yeah, I mean that was my dream. And unfortunately, life had other plans for me. Um, and I was about 8 or 9 years old, and everything was normal. My parents divorced at about 8 or 9 years old. That was probably the only thing that happened. But like my family was really close anyway, so my dad was my baseball coach, so I saw him all the time, and it was like nothing happened except I had two houses. Um, and everything was normal all the way through high school. At about 18, 19 years old, a close family member of ours had passed away. He died by suicide. And, you know, my family, myself, never encountered anything like that. And so it hit me the hardest. I was the only one that he ever told that he wanted to, that he even thought about doing this. And at 18, 19 years old, I'm not thinking anything. And he would always play it off as I'm just joking or, laugh about it. And so would I at that point. It didn't dawn on me. It didn't phase me. And and when he actually did do it, it hit me hard. Um, I'm left here with this guilt. Why couldn't I have done something? What if I'd have said something? He would still be here. All those thoughts running through my mind. And the family, they were at each other as well because they weren't equipped for this. So the blaming happened, and because they were upset and didn't know how to show their feelings. So at that point, when all that was going on, I'm like, no, there's no way I'm even saying anything that I knew. Um so I held on to that guilt, that secret, for about 20 years. And I turned to alcohol to help me uh, suppress all those emotions, all that guilt, and just try to forget all about what had happened. And it took me down this dark and lonely road, and it, it was uh, it was horrible, to say the least. It was horrible.
So how did you initially like, you're holding this guilt in that, no one knows about. How did you initially turn to alcohol? Like what led you to that direction?
So I would go out on the weekends and stuff with my friends, and we would go over. When I was that young, I couldn't go to the bars, of course. So we would go like to the school field or whatever, and just do that stuff. And I realized that alcohol made me forget a lot of that stuff, and it helped me to live essentially. And it turned me into this person that I had never been able to find. And I was also looking for that person. I was very shy. I was very introverted as a kid. Um, and I wasn't very confident in things, but alcohol it gave me that power that I could be this person that I wasn't, that I've been searching for this whole time. And I held on to that. And I noticed that I was very outgoing, and I was fun loving, and everybody wanted to be around, and I could make people laugh, and I could just be this person that was carefree. And I loved that aspect of it. I didn't know what it was going to get me into, of course. Um, and it started with little things, just being careless, and, driving while intoxicated, getting arrested for alcohol related offenses, and just took me down that dark path. And I you would think that something like that would make you wake up and say, I think I have a problem, and it didn't, and it only added fuel to my fire, because what I would look at it as, now I'm in this rut, and my only way of getting out of this rut, or at least feeling better, is to drink more. So I would just use that to medicate myself.
So, how long do you think it took you to realize that you actually probably had a drinking problem?
Probably into my early 30s. Um, so about 10 or so years of living that lifestyle, I knew that there was probably a problem. Um, but I wasn't ready to give it up. I had lived so much of my life with it that I didn't know how to live without it. Every single thing that I did, whether it was going to work, or just doing regular activities, I always had a drink in my hand. Um, and it didn't matter what I was doing. I built my whole life around it. Um, so even when it came down to when I finally had kids, my first daughter, it still was always around. I always needed it around. It to me helped me be a better dad. And that's the scary part when I think about it now. The reckless things that I did, um, even with my own children, in the same vicinity of me.
So, in this period from like your late teenager years to your early 30s, what for somebody that's never really, been through an addictive period in their life, for that may be listening, what did what stood out to you that made you finally realize, like, hey, I've got the addiction? Was it just the always being around you, or did you have like a need to drink? Like, how did that play out for you?
Yeah, so it was not so much of a want. So basically, the only way that I could survive is if I had it. So after about 10 or so years, drinking was no longer fun. It was a way of survival. And I did that for another 10 years because I didn't get sober until I was 39. Um, and so living like that, I had to, the only way I could take care of the withdrawal symptoms, and things like that, on the times that I did try to stop, I knew that the only way that I could keep going is if I just kept drinking, because withdrawal was so horrible, and I wasn't completely ready to give it up because I was so afraid. I had lived so much of my years, or so much of my life, with it, that there was no way that I could see myself without it. So at this point, I'm like, I have to continue drinking in order to survive. It got to the point where I wasn't any longer getting drunk or anything like that. it was That's how I felt normal. That is the only way that I could feel normal. And you know, I was able to recognize those signs, yet I still kept on doing it because I didn't have the right resources, or I didn't care to have the right resources. And I just didn't want to. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready at all to give it up. And I was more afraid of doing that than anything. I was more afraid of giving it up because I didn't know who I was.
When I was a young police officer, I'll never forget, I stopped a car one night that was kind of, swerving in and out of traffic. Nothing like too crazy, but, I'm just gonna stop, make sure everything's okay. And I go up there and talk to her, and I get a whiff of alcohol off of her. And I pull her out of the car and I'm talking to her and I can smell it a little bit on her. But she's acting normal, like, nothing out of the ordinary. I'm like, ma'am, I smell this on you. Do you mind if I do some sobriety tests? Yes, go ahead, sir. And like, you go through your standardized field sobriety tests, and I don't have the statistics right in front of me, but like the nystagmus is like 74% accurate, roughly, and it wasn't. When you see that in people who've been drinking a lot, it is very pronounced, and so, but hers was just so ever so slight, and I was such a new cop that I didn't thinking. I'm like, man, I'm just looking at this wrong. And we go through the rest of the walk and turn and the one leg stand, and like she's just doing those like very well. And finally another officer showed up and he's like, hey man, like she's showing more signs than what you're realizing. And as I got to talking to her, she told me, she's like, I drink I think it was a gallon of vodka almost a day or half.
Mm,
And she was a functioning alcoholic. And that scared me because she showed those signs, but they were so slight because her body was so used to having that high amount of alcohol in it
mm,
that
mm.
we actually ended up having to take her to the hospital because she was so high. It was a 0.34, which is, you know, what is that? Almost four times the legal limit, roughly.
Yeah,
And so it was so high that the jail was like, "Hey, you got to take her to the hospital and get her medically cleared." And that scared me because she was just having a normal conversation, just like me and you are.
right,
And
right,
and I'll always be grateful to her because I treated her with respect, and she opened up to me and was like, "I've been drinking for so long like this that that's a normal day to me."
mm, yeah,
And it made me realize that, beyond my sheltered life, you know, that there is stuff that goes on like that out there, and you have to be aware of that, to make sure that the public is safe because they do get behind the wheel, they do drive,
absolutely.
and I've never ran into her again, and I hope she turned her life around. I've never ran into her again, but it was. I mean, I probably hadn't been a cop maybe 3 or 4 months. Like I was brand new. And,
Mm,
like, I'll never forget that, like, I was not confident in what I was seeing, but she was a functioning alcoholic and, like, I mean, she didn't look any more, impaired than, Joe Schmo walking down the street.
right.
And so, it's scary to think that it happens, but it doesn't happen with just alcohol. It happens with
Mm.
drugs all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's
And
very scary.
so how did you get to the point to where you're like, "I want to get help. I want to change my life?"
It about 5 years ago. So my sobriety date is February 13th, 2020. Um, so a little more than 5 years ago, I had gotten to the point to where addiction was just it had such a tight grip on me that there was it was looking like there was no way out. The disease was telling me, look, you've been to jail, you've been to rehab, you've done the counseling, you've done the meetings. What more can you do except the only way you're ever going to get out of this is if you take your own life. And that was the turning point because I knew what it did to my family back then, and I know what it does to families, and that was never something that I had ever talked about. I've never wanted to do it, and at that point, when I was about to, go through with it, I was on the phone. I was at home. My wife was at work and the kids were at school, and I'm in the process of letting her know and by text because I did not want to hear her voice. um and I was telling her that she's going to have to pick up the kids. I'm not going to be able to. And in that moment, I was completely fogged. My vision was blurred. I'm like completely just wasted. And um, in the midst of all that, I accidentally called this pastor. I had his phone number in my phone. My dad had given it to me at one time because he was at his wits' end. He would too. He didn't know what to do, and he was just like, "Here, take this guy's number, give him a call. Maybe he can help you." And so I kept his number, but I never called him. And that day, I accidentally did when I was in the process of texting my wife, and the phone was ringing, and I completely froze. And when he answers, something clicks and I snap out of it. I'm like, I need help. I break down to this guy and he's not equipped to handle anything like this. And he doesn't know what he's jumping himself into. And, right off the bat, he's like, I'll meet you. And we met at this coffee shop down the road from my house. And I get there and we're talking, and he asked me to pray, and I had never done that before. Never in my life had I prayed, except in playing baseball. I pray I get a home run or something like that.
Right.
And my relationship with God was I believed, and that was it. I'd never been to church, and I was never one to church goer or anything like that. And I prayed that day, and I don't remember what it was that I prayed about, but you know, that was like the first step for me to getting out of this, and I felt lighter. And talking with him, and he did not know me at all. He didn't have to listen, and he did. And I'll never forget that conversation that we had, and him telling me that he will be there for me, not knowing me at all, and he's just going to be there for me. So I go home that day, um, and I did end up texting my wife to tell her she's still going to have to pick up the kids. I'm in no position to be able to do that, but I am also checking myself into rehab. So I called um, Ashley Treatment Center it's about 25 minutes up the road from me. I checked myself in, and you know, even at that moment when I told them I need help and I really want the help, they were like, "Do you need the detox? If you do, we have a bed for you now. If you don't, then we will have one open in 5 days." And still in that addiction, in that addictive mind, I said, no, I don't need a detox. And I did. I should have. And it was the worst decision that anybody can make. That is the worst experience to go through. Um, and, but I did it. And I told him, no, I'll be there in 5 days. Um, I stayed at home and I detoxed on my own, and that was the worst. The withdrawal, the sweats and the shakes, and at this point I'm hallucinating and seeing things, and my vision's blurred, and it's the worst thing, and I'm sick. um it- and it lasted about 3 days, 3 or 4 days. So come the time that I'm set to go to my intake at the rehab, my wife actually drove me there. And, after all that stuff that I just went through, the sick feeling and all that, I still, in my mind, we had a 25-minute ride, and that whole ride, I'm thinking, I feel better now. Like I feel good. I think I can do this on my own. I don't think that I need to go to rehab. And these crazy thoughts are running through my head, like I know she's not going to turn around. I can't swindle her into taking me back home. What if I just jump out of the car while it's moving down the highway, jump out, run into the woods, I'll hide for a couple days, come back, and I'll be brand new. Like that is the thing about addiction too, is it makes you act out of character. It makes you have these thoughts that are just so whack. And, I thought that that was the best thing for humanity if I did that. And obviously I did not. I gathered my thoughts. I let them stay inside, and we get to the rehab, and that was all she wrote. I check in, and and the best decision that I could have made ever.
Let me ask you, what made you go through with it? Once you talk to the pastor, you go through the withdrawals on your own, you know, what made you stick with it? Because you said you had those thoughts.
Hmm.
Um, what made you push yourself to go?
Just that I knew that there was no life in that for me. There was nothing that I could do. Nothing more that could be done. And there was still a piece of me that knew I needed help. I really needed to get sober. I have kids at home, I have a wife, I have a family, I have a house, I have all this stuff. And just something had to give. And when I thought about the thoughts that I was having about taking my own life, really scared the crap out of me, you know, because there wasn't one part of me that wanted to do that. And if I'm having those thoughts, and I know that I don't have those thoughts when I'm sober, that's what's going to help me push to get sober. And that's basically what it was. And that's what made me not say a word and not bring those thoughts to the forefront when I was having them, um, about turning around and things like that. Just go through with it. What do I have to lose? You know,
Yeah.
what's one more thing that I haven't tried, and that's to actually try.
I love to hear that because you often hear the negative sides of addiction. And especially coming from a law enforcement side, we see those negative sides a lot. Um, but I try to remind people that even beyond the disease that they're fighting, there's still a person inside there. And I would say a vast majority of them want to get help. They just don't know how because they feel
Hmm.
trapped.
Yep.
If someone is feeling trapped and wanting help, what's some steps they can take to feel like they can start pushing towards that goal of getting that help?
The main thing that I would say is that you know you're not alone. As even in those moments when we feel like the whole world disappeared around us, no matter where we stand on that path, um, there's there's always something. I mean, just like you just said too, there is somebody still within us that's buried deep down, that wants to be heard, wants to be seen, and the addiction is not allowing that to happen. Um, I would say to look within yourself. Um, you know, there's such a stigma around addiction and mental health, and how to get help, and people who see a therapist and counseling and all this stuff. But to be honest, that is where you're going to find your answer. Um, there, anyone who is addicted or going through those tribulations, there is something hidden, trauma related, that needs to be gotten to the root of. And the hardest thing to do is to admit that there is something going on. There's something else that's bigger than us that's causing this. So I myself is, I would say, reaching out, letting yourself be vulnerable, um, and knowing that you're not alone. this community of recovery is huge, and everyone wants to see you succeed. You just got to take that first step. And I know it's hard. It's the hardest thing that I've probably ever had to do, and the scariest. Not knowing the unknown is what's scary. Um, but I can tell you that, you know, once you get to a point where you can look in the mirror and realize that you truly love the person staring back at you again, 100% worth it.
Love that. I want to talk about you said your February 13th, 2020 is your sobriety
Yes.
date.
Hmm.
The world changes like a month later, month and a half later. How did the pandemic affect your sobriety?
Mm. That's
Was
a
that
that's a
tough
good
on
point.
you?
It actually, I want to say, well, let me backtrack a little bit because while I was in rehab is when it started to all shut down. I get released from rehab and my wife picks me up. We have to go to the store and things like that. And I'm like, what is going on in the world? Why are people standing so far away from each other? You know, I kind of felt like, if you ever seen the TV show The Walking Dead, I kind of felt like Rick Grimes in that first episode where he's like, what the hell happened?
Yeah,
And that's exactly what it was like. But and at first that was very hard because I go back to work, um, and they're like, we can't work from our office anymore. You got to go home. And that scared me because I would go to work from home. I have no supervision. Um, there's a liquor store 5 minutes up the street from my house. I have an hour for a lunch break. I'm getting thrown back into this world where I'm super vulnerable, and I could relapse at any time. It's still fresh in my mind. And yes, I have the tools and the resources, but now you're asking me to, not that it's my job's fault, but now you're asking me to go and not change my people, places, and things,
yeah.
because I'm left to myself. So um, that first week or so, my wife actually stayed home with me, and she didn't have to. And I just asked her. I was like, you know, I want to hold myself accountable. I need to do things that's going to do this in this new world that we're living in now. Um, and I asked her to ask her boss if she could stay at home for like a week. Um, and she was able to, and then she got sent home. So after that week, I thought I was going to still be by myself, and I was getting anxious and all that. But then she was sent home, and I can honestly say that the pandemic wasn't as bad on me as I thought it was going to be. It started out that way, but I was able to create certain spaces, and I was able to create certain things that was going to help me. Um, and what I learned in rehab was to be yourself accountable, and be able to communicate. So my wife was like the perfect person. She's here with me all the time. She knows me better than anybody else, and I know she won't judge me. So I fed off of that, and I was able to talk to her, and she would talk me through things. And so uh, when I would go out without her, if I had to go to like the gas station or something, I made sure that I downloaded an app so that she could track me, um, just so I know, and I could have turned the tracker off anytime I wanted, but I didn't because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this, and this is what I really wanted to do. So I can't say for sure that the pandemic really helped or didn't help. I used it to my advantage, though.
And that's a good thing. I mean,
Yeah.
because I mean that is a stressful time to like completely change your life.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and I'm happy that that worked out for you because um there was a lot of people that like were just scared of what tomorrow was going to bring.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it actually ended up kind of helping you out to get through those first rough couple, like, days and weeks. And um, so you move on. You've turned your life completely around. What have you found that has helped you the most in staying committed to staying sober?
I love looking at things in a more positive light. And what I mean by that is I've read up and I've done so much research on having like a growth mindset. And I've been really digging into that because I was never one to, I was always one to feed off the negativity. And it's human nature too, because when you think about it, if something negative happens, you expect that negative thing to happen. So what I've tried to do, and I've been pretty good with doing it, is shifting that narrative and saying, when something happens like that, what am I learning from it? So, and that was very hard to train myself to do that because I'm having to unlearn everything that I have once known, and just completely create this whole persona pretty much. So the way I look at things now is what have I learned from such a negative situation, whatever negative thing happens, what am I learning from it? And when I started thinking about that, it helps me to just completely shift how I want to look at things altogether. Um, because uh, human nature, we're always going to um, try to find everything that we can to not that's not going to benefit us.
Yep.
And when we think about it, like, why is this happening to me? Instead of saying, why is this happening to me, say, what am I learning from this? And life's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows every single day, but if you can find something positive in every single situation, you will start to look at things just so much different. um, and it has a different light, if you will, um, because this world that we're in is pretty dark, and it's you got to sometimes look very hard to find something positive in it, um, but there always is something.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. It's a mind shift
Mhm.
that we all have to do, whether you're in addiction or not, because we always kind of want to like gravitate towards that negative of like, here we go again,
Yeah.
like we're going down the same road again,
Hmm.
and it takes an actual like person to really, because I mean, there was a point in my life that I was not happy where I was career wise. And I felt like I was applying for all these jobs, and like I felt like I was the best candidate. Like I met other candidates there, and like for whatever reason, it didn't work out at that time.
Yeah.
And I was so down on myself. I'm like, man, I'm so tired of like just doing the same thing, throwing these apps out here and going to interviews, and it doesn't work out. And this other guy that's not near as qualified as me is getting this job, and I was turning into a very negative person
Mm.
because of a bad mindset. And it
Yep.
finally, kinda like you said, it took me to physically just change it and, like, get back to being a more positive person of, like, well, maybe it didn't work out for whatever reason, and looking on the bright side of things, because it's scary when you go down that road of negativity, like, it can snowball and just keep getting bigger and bigger and turn into more things because of just that one small mindset of, "Well, here we go again."
Yeah.
You you
Absolutely.
and so I love that you can recognize that, like, it's taken that mind shift on your end to, like, help turn around your life because a lot of people deal with that on a daily basis.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
And it's
how did you decide you wanted to write a book, and how did you go about that process?
so yeah, I never had a thought to actually write a book at first. Um, it didn't come about for, a few years into my sobriety. Um, but the way it came about is because when I got out of rehab, um, and I knew I couldn't do anything right then and there because I was too fresh. I was still learning things, and I'm still learning things now, but you know, I was way too fresh to start helping others right out of rehab. Um, so I went to that pastor who had helped me, and I said, I want to help other people. I what would you think about me starting a group at the church? And anybody's welcome, even non-members, and we'll just it's for mental health and addiction. And he was like, absolutely, let's do it. He was like, in fact, I had already planned on doing something, and I was going to ask you if you wanted to run that group. And it kind of went hand in hand there. And I was like, most definitely. And about 8 months later, we were able to start the group. Um, and, then I had I was linked up with the director of mental health and addiction services up at my local detention center. And, I go up there and mentor the inmates there who have drug and alcohol related offenses, and things like that. And, I go up there on a weekly basis. So now I'm starting to reach others in my community, and I'm like, I don't want to stop just there. How can I get, you know, others involved outside of this community? Because I'm talking at rehabs and I have speaking engagements here and there. And um, so I was like, maybe I can just write a book, and that's that's literally how it came about. And um, you know, I started writing it, and it started feeling I had to take myself back to where I was, and I think that was the hardest part for me writing that book is taking myself back for the very first time, without a counselor, without anybody to mediate, and just lay it all out. And it was very therapeutic. And as I'm writing it, it's getting more intense, and I'm coming up with ideas and things like that. And by the time I know it, I have a full book, and I wrote it 4, 5 times over, trying to make it to where I really wanted it, and to tell my story the best way. And so I was like, now I got the book written. What do I do with it? I had no idea. And I found a publisher, and they took it, and we I was able to get it out there. And now, it's out there for that was my goal, to find out how to get it out, my story, to others outside of the community, and I did that. And it's such a wild and crazy transformation of who I was, to who I am now. You know, being an author, I never would have put that, behind my name or whatever. And I never looked at myself like that. And but it's been such an amazing experience to be able to do.
Well, and I'm gonna tell you, man, you've got a reason to be here, and you've got a story to tell. And I love that you have the platform to do that. I mean, that's awesome. Like
Thank you.
we 1000% need to celebrate the wins.
Yeah.
Um, with people coming out of addiction. So you've got the book out. You've got the Facebook and Instagram groups. Let's
Hmm.
talk about that. Like, how can people get involved in that? And like, what's your mission with those?
Sure. So with the groups, it's just for an extra, avenue for others to, with like-minded others, to just share their story if they'd like. Nobody's going to judge you. Join the group. and we post daily or weekly about our meetings coming up and things like that. So, and if you're not in the area, I'm in Maryland. If you're not in Maryland or close, we also do it via Zoom. So if you needed to join that way, you're more than welcome to do so. There's no obligation to show your face or obligation to talk even. Sometimes we just need to listen. And so if that's the main thing for the group is for like-minded individuals to come together and just not feel alone.
Yeah. And especially in today's world, it allows people another avenue to get connected with people that like have been through that same struggle and
Yeah,
not feel judged. And so I love that you're doing that, man. The Zoom thing is just wonderful because anybody can join from anywhere. And like you said, you don't got to show your face.
yeah,
Even if you just want to be there, like
yep,
that's still progress from not even being there.
exactly.
And I think that we need more positivity like that in the world. So what's next for you? You've got this going on. What's next? Because
Hmm.
I have this sneaking suspicion that you're not done sharing your gift with the world. So tell me what's next for you.
So, well, I'm contemplating on writing another book, but this time not. I don't want it to be my story. It's going to be a self-help um, book. So I'm looking forward to possibly doing that. And you know, I'm still doing speaking engagements at rehabs and other events. I love doing this podcast thing, and that's just another avenue to help get the word and get the story out to others that aren't in my community. And it's just this whole journey, whether I do write the book or I don't, I'm still going to share my story. I'm still going to help others. I'm still going to be there for whoever needs my help. Um, and really be there. I remember, going through my recovery or the times that I would try, and I just never felt like people really wanted to be there for me. They were just saying it as a formality, and it could have just been me thinking that. They could have really been wanting to be there for me, but that was just me, the way I was. But I just want others to know that no matter what, um, you can count on me if you need somebody to reach out to. I will not judge. I'll be that ear that you need to listen. You know,
I love that. I think that one day you need to get your own podcast going to share the stories of recovery and celebrate those. You've got a good way of conveying your message, and I think you would be very successful in that.
thank
And
you.
I mean that.
I appreciate
Um,
that because I was thinking about that too as well.
I mean,
Doing
I
that.
sit and think like there's so many people out there that listen to podcasts now, whether it's on
Yeah.
YouTube or through Spotify or through Apple Podcasts or wherever they listen to them at. Um, but it's a new medium to share your message, man.
Yeah.
And if there's anything I can do to support you, if you decide to go down that route, you let me know, and I'll be
Absolutely.
there to help out. I think that's awesome that you're here, celebrating your recovery. So if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to get in contact with you? Because I'm going to put your link tree in the episode description.
Oh, great. Yeah, that would probably be the best way. It has my email, so you can reach directly out to me. Of course, it also has a link to the Facebook and Instagram pages as well, and the link to my book as well. But yeah, my email's right there. You could reach out to me directly if you wanted to.
I love that. So if you could give one piece of advice to this person listening to this that might need that extra push, what's your one piece of advice?
Hmm. Take your time. showing up for yourself every single day, working consistently on healing the parts of you that, once held you back. Um, Building that mindset that craves growth, not the negativity, but growth. You're gonna get to the point, and I've said it before, where you can look in the mirror and just love yourself again. And because I remember at one time I would look in the mirror, I didn't recognize who that person was staring back at me. Um, and you will be able to love yourself again. And no matter where you are on your path, whether it's your first 24 hours or your decades into your recovery, sobriety is a powerful milestone, no matter how much you got. But it's not the final destination. There is no finish line to this thing, and that's why I say take your time. Um, you're never going to be completely done of this. It's a lifelong journey. Take your time, work on yourself, and you're going to heal.
I love that, man. Damon, you're always welcome back on the podcast, and thanks for joining me tonight, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you for everything that you do as well.
Yeah, appreciate that. Damien, like I said, you're welcome back anytime, okay? Have a good night, man.
Absolutely. Thanks. You too.